Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Childcare Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Childcare Director's Chair.
How do state policies get shaped, and what role do childcare providers play in the process? In today's episode, we're going to be joined with Dana and Paula to reveal behind-the-scenes advocacy work that helps influence key policies impacting childcare directors, their staff, and the families that they serve. Whether you are navigating challenges at the state level or looking to advocate for changes in your community, this episode will give you clear steps, actionable insights, and we'll dig deeper into the understanding of how you can make your voice heard. You are listening to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast, and in today's episode, we're going to explore the powerful role of NEYC state affiliates in influencing policy and shaping the future of childcare. We are joined with amazing guests, Dana, I hope I don't say this wrong, Schmack?
Yep.
Schmack, okay. And she is with Raising Wisconsin Coordinator and Membership Specialist, and her colleague, Paula Drew, the Director of Early Care and Education Policy and Research at WECA. How do you say that?
Yep.
WECA.
Yep. The Wisconsin
Perfect.
Early Childhood Association. Yep. Perfect.
You guys, that's a mouthful. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
So tell folks a little bit, we'll start with you, Dana. Tell folks a little how you came to the field of early childhood education or advocacy.
Yeah. So I got my bachelor's from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater in early childhood education, regular and special education. I ended up taking numerous teaching positions, varying from birth to 4 years old. And then when I was teaching in the baby room, I had children of my own. And I ended up having to leave the classroom because I could not afford to have my own children in my classroom at my teaching salary. So I became a director and was fortunate enough to be able to bring my kids to the site that I was a director at. And then COVID happened, and I really saw the importance of childcare, but also the challenges that it faced. So I ended up getting my master's in early childhood education policy and decided to kind of do some work behind the scenes. And that's when I started at the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association.
All right. And what about you, Paula?
So my story is very similar to Dana's. I've pretty much had every role within a childcare program, from substitute teacher to sub-coordinator, admin assistant, executive director of a preschool and after-school program. When I had my second child, the program that I was a director of did not have infant toddler care because we were in a church basement, and the rules around infant care, prevented us from doing that. Just could not. My husband is a teacher. We could not make it work. So I also went to grad school, focused on ECE policy, and found my way to WECA as well, because I just felt like things were not changing, right? Just trying to advocate as a director at a local level, at a statewide level, at a national level, and I wasn't seeing much movement, and I was really excited to come to WECA and hopefully be a part of something bigger that could make change for all of the people still in the field, like you, Erica, that are doing this super hard work and trying to make ends meet every day.
Yeah, it's so funny. I talk to so many educators on a regular basis, and so many of our stories are very similar. So the same, I have had every position, started an after school program, came into the field because I had a child, and you're like, how do I make this work? Oh, I got it. Quit the job I have now, go work in a childcare, bring my kid. Like, yeah, that's the story for so many of us. And then we really get hooked and love what we do. And it's you don't have to be in the field for very long to see the cracks very quickly. Certainly those cracks have been magnified since COVID. And yeah, I think lots of directors try to make a difference at the local level. And sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing that. And so there's some folks that are probably listening to this podcast right now, and they're like, oh, I don't do advocacy. That's not me. No, it is you. Every time you talk to families about the work that you do and you talk to community leaders, that's advocacy. It doesn't always happen at the legislative level or the state house. It could be just educating folks on what it is that we do. So, I always find that interesting when I talk about advocacy. Sometimes folks are like, oh, I'm just an infant teacher. I don't do that. No, you do. So Tell us a little bit about your organization. I know you guys are a state affiliate. Just talk to us a little bit about some of the work that you all doing there at Raising Wisconsin's program there.
Yeah, so WECA's mission is to advance transformational support of the early childhood workforce. So we know that when childcare providers are supported, it has returns for everyone in the community, regardless of even if they have children. Providers are the workforce behind the workforce. So WECA has long been a champion for a public investment in ECE through past engagement and advocacy efforts for decades. And this connects to our vision of childcare treated as a public good so that educators, children, families, and communities have the opportunity to thrive.
Erica, I'll also just share, as a NACCE affiliate, the Wisconsin NACCE affiliate, we do operate a number of programs that do directly support the field. So we run the Teach Scholarship Program. We have a wage stipend program called Reward. We do CACFP food program sponsorship for family childcare providers. And we also operate an extensive shared services network across the state. And so most of our funding either comes from the state or local grants to fund that direct program work. And in the past, this advocacy side of things has always been like, our day jobs have been in the programs doing the program work. And then all of us who are interested in advocacy would do that sort of like on top of our program works. And that's been difficult to be able to meet the need, the deep level of need for advocacy while also, meeting the grant requirements, the scopes of work, those sorts of things. Recently, we were able to launch the center, WECA Center for ECE Policy Research and Engagement. And now Dana and I work on a dedicated staff that can actually be able to lift up the voices of providers and bring that lived experience into policymaking in a way that our organization hasn't ever been able to do before. And as an AC affiliate, I think other states are very interested in this new way of being able to meet the advocacy moment because these needs just seem to get more and more intense, right? And we need people, this field needs people that both understand what's happening on the ground and have the bandwidth to advocate in the ways that we deserve for big change.
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about the work? Can you give us a little bit more details on how that works?
Yeah, so the center has 5.5 staff. As you mentioned earlier, my role is really focused on policy and research. So I work with research bodies in the state that are looking at early care and education, and I help them think about it in a way that's grounded in what's happening on the ground for parents and for providers. So for example, maybe the University of Wisconsin is coming up with a survey for provider, but they don't understand really the difference between family providers and group providers. And so they're asking questions that maybe only would relate to a group provider. So we help them think about the right research questions and also the right ways to ask them. But we're not really interested in doing that research ourselves because that would require a much larger staff, right? But but our sole focus is to ensure that lived experience is brought into the place where the policy making is happening. And so we're also continuously engaging. So we have 3 folks that work on just engaging parents, providers, and businesses into this conversation. And so we're able to fold their feedback and their lived experience into things that are coming up that we see in bills or we see that the Department of Children and Families are interested in doing. So we can say, sure, that seems like a good idea. Let us take this back to providers, educators, parents, and get some real feedback on what they think. And so we kind of are playing this intermediary. And then we're also able to sort of take this data from research and policy and break it down into bite-sized pieces for providers who have 10 minutes. Yeah. Tell me what I need to know about this one thing in plain language. And that's something we also do to make sure that people in the field are knowledgeable about what's happening that's going to impact them.
Yeah, I love that. And I love making sure that those connections are meaningful because sometimes I own several childcare centers and that happens, you'll get lots of things. Okay, what does this mean? How does it affect me? So yeah, I love that and making sure that it's, not only easy to understand, but also all the voices are heard. I think that's a wonderful way to go about that. So Dana, from your perspective, how do state level advocacy efforts directly impact childcare directors in their day-to-day operations?
Yeah. So Paula, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. Everything that happens at a state level directly impacts providers. I'll say right now in Wisconsin, we're having, we have a divided Congress, we have a Democratic governor, a Republican majority, Senate and Assembly. And so everybody understands this is a problem and they're talking about what solution is going to solve the issue. So we saw some bills last legislative session on deregulation, changing ratios, for example, changing group sizes. And we know, right, Erica, that those things have huge impacts on what happens in a classroom. And some providers have the privilege to say, well, even though this ratio has been increased, I know what quality is, and I'm going to keep that ratio lower. And other providers just don't have that privilege. If the subsidy rates are as low as they are in our state, 45% of affordable programs, if you can't make ends meet, you're going to adjust your ratios if you have that capability. And who loses out then? The kids and the teachers in those programs that have the least resources available. Everything that happens at a state level impacts the educator, the child in their own setting. And that's what we really need lawmakers to understand is like these decisions that you think are an easy fix, a cheap way to fix the industry have deep impact on the experience of everyday people.
Yeah,
and I think when you're sorry.
It's okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you're looking at a state like Wisconsin that has such a diverse landscape in terms of rural and urban areas, that's what we really try to connect with providers on, is sharing those stories, because every provider has a different story. Every provider's unique community really makes up how the state level policies and what is happening really impacts them and their families.
I want to just say, because I've been on the board of our state affiliate here in Rhode Island for several years, and I've been advocating forever. But one of the things that people will frequently ask me when we start talking about ratios, to your point, is I think that conversation happens because I think there's a little confusion because it varies so much from state to state. And so when you're not in the field, you're like, well, it's working in Texas. Well, look at their ratios as opposed to Boston, right? So, and I even think in the terms of how we identify ourselves, like family childcare, early childhood. Like, so I think if we had more just consistency, and I know this is probably a much larger conversation, but I think some of it is hard for other folks to understand because we don't, as an industry, always have consistency, because if the data says this is what's best for kids, why is it not consistent? So I think the consistency makes it hard for other folks to understand why ratios are the way that they are across the country in different areas, So I think that sometimes can be a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I often say like it's not apples to apples because everybody's licensing rules are different in each state. So maybe somebody does have a higher ratio, but they also have really strict rules around other parts, group sizes even, that protect children. And so we've started to talk about those types of regulation changes as child protections. And then we've tried to talk about other types of regulatory changes as administrative regulatory changes to help people understand this sort of like group of deregulation topics impact children and safety and health. And then there's another side that might actually make your life easier because it automates things or takes some of the headache out of paperwork. And that is valuable, right? And we can't think of them all the same.
Yeah. I think, too, when folks talk about, the cost of care and always comparing early childhood education to college and the price. And I'm like, well, there's a huge difference there too, right? So, I just think when we're talking to folks not in the field, it's sometimes a little difficult for them to get it. So let's talk about, Dana, membership, right? You're in charge of membership. Talk a little bit about that. What does that look like? How do you do it? What are the benefits? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so WECA is a membership organization. Obviously, we are the Wisconsin State affiliate of NACE, the largest membership organization nationwide for early childhood educators. And we really value our members and the fact that they're connected directly to the field. So different benefits that WECA provides are some of the ones that members have actually said are their favorites are the conference that we hold statewide. It's just been wonderful, and those deep discounts to the conference. Other membership benefits are being connected to others in the field. So really having the opportunity to connect with their community and on that in the early childhood field, whether it's interests, whether it's regional, is something so important right right now when it can feel really lonely. I remember as a childcare provider feeling like some of my experiences were very unique. So being able to connect to others in the field. And, NACCE is actually just remodeled their membership. So now we're looking at the CARES model. And I think there's going to be some really exciting things that come from the feedback that we've been hearing directly from members. So making sure that we're listening to members. I think NACCE has done a wonderful job of that in transitioning to this new model.
Yeah. And your conference, is it in person or is it a virtual?
Yeah, so our conference is in person in Madison, Wisconsin this year in the early October. So we're holding it Friday and Saturday and working on getting some wonderful presenters. Last year we had Mr. B come in and really energize the field, and just it was wonderful to see so many people in person. Since COVID, there's been a lot of virtual opportunities, which has been wonderful for providers who might not have access to some of those in-person events, but really having the ability to connect in person was so great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love in person. I think something magical happens, and you learn a lot of content and maybe some new tips, strategies, those types of things. But those connections that you make at conferences with directors that are, or other teachers that don't work at your site, those are colleagues that you can reach out to when you need support or just need to talk a little bit, talk things through. I always find that I've made a lot of friends at conferences for sure.
Absolutely.
What other types of things do you do in your position besides membership?
Yeah, so I actually am the Raising Wisconsin coordinator. So WECA leads the multi-sector coalition Raising Wisconsin. As we've said before, partnerships with other organizations are really central to WECA's advocacy work, strengthening our efforts to drive meaningful policy change for WECA's early childhood sector. And through Raising Wisconsin, we collaborate with a diverse range of partners. So it includes early childhood professionals, business leaders, healthcare organizations, social justice advocates, and faith-based groups to advocate for a sustained investment in early childcare and education. A key example of how these partnerships have driven impactful advocacy efforts was our last budget cycle in 23 and 25. Through Raising Wisconsin, we mobilized our coalition and supporters to send over 100,000 letters from Wisconsin constituents to their legislators, which really emphasized this critical role childcare plays in the state economy and workforce. So it's been really exciting to just connect with members outside of childcare to really hear their stories on how childcare impacts them, both positively, but also the lack of accessibility, how that can really be a detriment for all of these areas.
Okay. And Paula, what about you? Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you really would like folks to know? And although this podcast is played all over the world, I actually have a lot of listeners in your state. I know, because I always go look at the locations. I actually have a lot of listeners in your state. So is there anything that folks that are listening that you want your local folks to know and across the way?
Yeah, I think because we're talking about advocacy, and frankly, right now, advocacy is the most important thing. We've got, changes that are likely going to happen on the federal level that will impact us on the state. And in Wisconsin, we have had a program called Childcare Counts that's been operating since 2020, providing monthly payments to providers. So every month since May of 2020, the ARPA funding, the COVID relief funding ran out last year, and our governor was able to secure a small amount of money to keep that going. That ends on June 30th. So we're in our state budget. Our new state budget would start on July 1st. So it's a critical time to advocate in Wisconsin for a ongoing general revenue investment in early care and education. And, at our organization, my role is really about putting together data that is compelling so that people can understand what's happening at large. Yeah. But what is more important and makes a great sort of companion to the data is those real stories, right? Like, what is it like for your business? You receiving 15% of your revenue right now is coming from the state in this program called Childcare Counts. On June 30th, that program is going away. What does that mean for you? Are you going to have to raise tuition? Are you going to have to lower wages? I feel like people, there's always this age-old question of
Yeah.
What if it costs so much? Like, why do educators get paid so little? And even though it feels
I
like
can
we're
break
like,
it down.
I know exactly, that's what we're trying to help people to do right now is to set meetings with their legislators, open their books, talk about their budget. Like, this is the reality, and it has been really impactful. And so if you are listening and if you're in Wisconsin, please reach out to us at WECA. We'd love to help you plan a meeting with your local legislators in which you can talk about the real impact on your budget. It seems like it should be, like everybody should understand it, and they just don't.
They don't. Yeah. What about you? Is that Dana? Is there anything that you would really like your local folks to know or abroad that I haven't asked you?
Yeah, I think Paula said it really well. The time is now to share those stories, to get connected. WECA is having an advocacy day next month with Head Start and Raising Wisconsin on April 16th. And I think it's going to be really important to show up in person. So we are hoping that community members, childcare providers, families, business leaders are able to come and attend this day and really share their stories, because it is important that we tell legislators before it's too late that this is happening in our communities, and they need to know the severity of what will happen when this money runs out. And if you're not able to attend on April 16th, like Paul said, please still reach out, because we can connect you to your legislator and still share your story in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for all the work that you do. As somebody who owns a childcare center, it is very hard to get out of the day-to-day to get to all of the things as much as we want to. But so thank you for being our voice and helping, organize things for the folks who don't even know where to start. Before we wrap up, tell me, there's probably a lot of things you can mention, but tell me one thing that you guys are most proud of at your organization.
Yeah. I think I'm most proud, Erica, that most of the folks that work at WECA have really deep experience in the field. And so we come to our work not only with this knowledge of like, I've been in your shoes, but also I stayed in this field because I wanted to make a change. And so like every phone call I'm answering, whether it's like a technical question about a scholarship or like getting you to advocate, is really, really important to me, because this is why I chose this field. This is why I show up every day to my work, is because I am intrinsically motivated to make this world a better place. Like, you are doing the hardest work, and Dana and I, like, we couldn't hack it, like we were in those shoes, and eventually we couldn't make it work anymore. And we know how many people are out there today still showing up every single day, caring for kids, like making your budget work, dealing with subs that don't show up, like all of those things, which I think are becoming more and more difficult. And we're just grateful that we can be in this role, like showing up for you all, because we know it's very hard for you to get out of the classroom, to get out of the office, to pay attention to the 8,000 emails that you're getting every day. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of similarly, I'm really proud of WECA's ability to pivot. I think looking 2 years ago at the way we were engaging with providers is completely different to the way we engage now. Like Paula said, recognizing that attending virtual meetings might not work for everybody, or attending in-person meetings might not work for everybody. So the development of the engagement team has been so wonderful, because they're located across the state. And if they reach out to providers in different communities across the state, and when I was a part of the engagement team, I drove 5.5 hours up to Ashland, Wisconsin, to hear from a community childcare center that was struggling. And so we were able to attend their staff meeting, connect them to WECA resources, help them share their stories. And I think making sure that every voice is heard is so incredibly important. So that deep connection to all the communities in Wisconsin, I think, is something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put your contact information below in the link so folks that are local can connect with you. I'm sure they already know about you, but you know what? It doesn't hurt for them to reconnect. If you haven't reached out in a while, these ladies are ready to help you. Everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, remember, it's the little details that make a big impact in the success of your childcare business. Have a great day.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Eric.
Thanks, Lee.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up, and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.